I have been thrifting and I've found some really amazing pieces, but like most thrifts, they're not exactly perfect. So there are a few things I want to improve on. Today, I'm gonna bring you with me as I fix my thrifts. So let me show you what we're working on. I found this incredible quilted vest. Someone has worked very, very hard on it. The thing is, it's a bit too long for my preferences. I would want to crop it a little bit and maybe give it a bit of that raised side there. We'll see. Then we have this lovely leather jacket, and I just love the wear on it, the patina. It was just too much of a gem to pass up. The thing is, it's missing a button, and these buttons are very specific. Then we have this beautiful green corduroy jacket. It also is missing a button. And then there's the buttonhole here that it has been frayed, so we'll work on fixing that. So relatively easy fixes. Let's get going. Okay, so buttons. I have my stash, and they're even cord. Would they fit though? No, it's not too big. Purple. Nah. Oh, look at these beauties. Oh my goodness. These are vintage. When I bought my used sewing machine, which you can see in the corner, it's an old vintage Singer. A lot of this came, like the little bits and bobs came with it. Oh my God, yes. Yes, these are our buttons. Perfect. I am so excited for this. Then we have our leather coat. And what's really cool about this is that there are also little tiny buttons on the back as well. And I feel like those are meant as like a reinforcement so that it doesn't pull on the leather and stretch it out. Like kind of like what a washer would do for a screw. So I'm pretty sure we can find one of those little black ones. Yeah, like for example, this guy. Evidently, we don't have an equivalent to this guy. So let's go on the hunt for that. Back from the shopping trip, and we have results. I didn't show you this. I found it just after I finished the last clip. But essentially, I also have this one thrifted black sheer silk blouse, and it has these seashell pearly buttons on them. And because they're seashell, they're breakable, they're natural. And on this side, it broke. I was able to get a perfect replacement for that. See that? So that will go perfectly here. Regarding the vest, we have a few options. As we knew, there was no way we were going to find the same button, but we found a few options, and here they are. Now, this guy, in theory, pretty close. So it has a little metallic center on the outside around. It's about the same size. It's very much so the same vibe. Maybe it looks a little tarnished in comparison. But I also got another option, this guy, and this guy is more of a brass. I think this is actually a metal. And it's also circular, and honestly, I think I like this one better. It's a little more shiny, and so it doesn't look as tarnished. And so we just have to get sewing. Sewing on buttons is not a difficult process, but a tedious one. I like to do it in the evenings while I'm having a chat or watching a video. The corduroy turned out nicely, no problems there. The seashell buttons were a total breeze to sew on since the chiffon is so thin. The leather vest was a bit more of a challenge because the leather is thicker, and also I had the small button on the other side that made it difficult to see where I was going, but it all turned out very well in the end. Now for the big project, the quilted vest. First, I had to decide how cropped I wanted it to be and pin the length. Then I drew the curves using an assortment of cups to get a nice even edge. Then I unpicked the bias binding, which I somehow managed not to film. I'm keeping the bias binding attached because I'll sew it back on at the end. With the bias binding out of the way, I double-checked the length and the curves and started cutting. This was very intimidating. So now that I've got the shape cut out, I'm almost ready to sew the bias binding back on, But this is the part they never show you, is that after unpicking the bias binding, we have to clean it up from all of these little threads. So I have a confession. I've never used bias binding before. But how hard can it be? Just sandwich in the fabric between the binding, sew it down, and you're golden, right? Well, to be honest, I struggled with this a lot. Let's see how it went. Okay, rewind. Essentially, when you're sewing bias binding, you only see the top side of the ribbon, but you have to make sure that the bottom side is also being sewn in to entirely encapsulate the raw edge that you're binding in. Of course, I wasn't using pins because obviously I like to suffer and go down flaming. As I was sewing, particularly these tricky curved sections, I just wasn't able to catch the bottom. I had to unpick several times. At one point, I gave up and even pinned the whole dang thing. Even though it was a bit better, it still didn't really work. I still have several gaps on the underside, but because you can't really see them from the front, I'll just hand stitch these shut. At this point, I'm just trying to get this done. So here are the final results. This is the quilted vest in all her glory. She is perfectly cropped and even has the lovely curved sides that I really wanted. I'm really glad that I was able to give this dated vest a new lease on life. Then we have the green corduroy jacket, and I just love how oversized and slouchy this is. The vintage buttons are just a breath of fresh air and transport this jacket out of professor mode. And finally, the leather vest, which now, thanks to its new buttons, gives a nice cinched waist effect. Looking forward to wearing these with some wide-legged trousers. So those are my weekend thrift fixes. I hope you enjoyed them. It was a lot of fun for me, and I'm really happy coming out with 4 new garments that I can wear that all cost €3 a piece and a little bit of elbow grease. See you next time.
Look at like you said, you're not gold. Maybe you need a break.
Fine.